Keith Pompey, did you hear your intro music there? We tried to give you an official intro to the show.
Yeah, it's funny. I was laughing because I heard that maybe only like 10 times in my whole career. I mean, my whole college career because we were always losing.
That's because they only play it when they score a touchdown, and that's so rare. When Keith and I were at Pitt, that team was horrible. And wasn't that the return of Johnny Majors?
Yeah, oh my gosh. Hey, look, oh gosh. So I was a writer at the Pitt News, and I was a diehard Johnny Majors fan, right? So.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you how little sympathy I have for you both.
Because were you a Johnny Majors first time around fan, or did you continue to be a Johnny Majors second time around fan?
Well, here's the thing, because he went to Tennessee and he had success, and I used to like seeing him. Like, oh, this guy looks like he's in control on the sidelines, this and that, and then you find out that he won the national championship at Pitt. So to go back to Tennessee, so I'm like, man, Johnny Majors, the guy, he's the guy. And I go to practice one time, and the dude was up, like, overseeing practice, like, looking up in the top of the stadium, like they had like an elevated, stand. I can't pronounce it right now. But I look, and I see my man nodding off, and I'm like, oh, Lord. Like, I lost all respect for Johnny right then and there. Like, then I just knew, like,
Pitt was so bad at that point that they gave us tickets for free.
Now, let me explain something to both of you, okay?
Well,
you got nothing on me, okay?
We're gonna get no pity.
Rutgers was 0-11 my freshman season. They were ranked the worst team in college football by Sports Illustrated. Not only did they give you a ticket to the game, they had buses from campus over to the stadium. They gave you a hot dog and a ticket, and they still couldn't convince people to go. So you guys got nothing on me. And frankly, Keith, I've been doing this show with Jeff now. This is still going to start our 5th year. We'll talk about that later. It's crazy that we've been doing it that long. I still haven't heard the Rutgers fight song played on the show. The closest I got was when Rutgers basketball was going to make the tourney, and the pandemic stopped that. So I got nothing going on here.
Well, that's kind of bad. It kind of stinks to be you. But hey, guess what?
Well,
who Rutgers won his first Big East football game against?
Well, if there's actually college football, they'll win some football.
No,
but my luck, I finally get a coach that recruits some players and they won't play a season. That's kind of how it goes for me as a Rutgers fan.
Yeah, but Rutgers did beat us. I remember we were looking at the game in the student union. We were like, we lost to Rutgers? Rutgers?
See? See? That's when you know. When you lose to them and you go, we lost to them? Really?
Yeah, so Keith, before we get to actual basketball, we actually wanted to have an intervention with you. Okay. So Jason has some tips for you on how to properly vacation.
So I was listening to your Locked On Sixers podcast, and I heard about your staycation. I didn't hear of like an inflatable kiddie pool or anything like that. You're talking about going down the basement.
No,
apparently,
Hawaii.
if you're going to use me as the frame for travel, Jeff believes that I'm supposed to give you some tips for what to do. So.
Oh, yeah, you gotta tell me. Well, see, but now you're making me think about your vacation last year when you went to Hawaii.
Exactly,
like, wow,
exactly. So apparently we got to talk about this and work on it because you didn't quite go to Hawaii for your staycation. And now if all things go well, you won't have a vacation day for who knows when, right, man?
I know, right? Yeah, what is it? That's crazy. It could be not quite 91, but it's going to be probably, if they go all the way, it could be, 80 days?
Wow. Well, let's get into that.
Let's talk about that a little bit, okay? So the first of 90 days, they're going back next week. It sounds like, according to Brett Brown, they're all going back healthy.
Yeah. It sounds like, the thing is right now, you're hearing of certain teams that like, okay, look at the Denver Nuggets. They had to close the facility. The LA Clippers had to close their facility. The fact that the Sixers, the facility is still open, that's a good sign. You know what I mean? I know that sounds kind of crazy to say it. Huh?
They should close it and put them in a bubble early, though.
Well, and that's the funny thing. And okay, the Brooklyn Nets, their facility was closed too, and that's why some of the Nets were a little upset because they were one of those teams who were supposed to go to the bubble early, and then the league changed their mind and decided to have guys come to their home market. A lot of the teams. I think the only team that went down there early was who was it? It was
the Raptors, right?
The Raptors. So with that being said, these guys come to New York, and two of them get the coronavirus by going to New York. DeAndre Jordan and what's the other guy's name? Oh man,
Spencer Dinwiddie got it too.
Yeah,
right?
Spencer. Thank you. It's like,
Are
wow.
they going to have enough players to play?
Huh?
Are the Nets going to have enough players to play? Durant's not coming back. Kyrie Irving might not be coming back. They got these two guys that are out. Are the Nets going to have enough players to play?
I mean, were you talking quality players? Nah, they probably won't.
Well,
they won't.
I'm sure that they could do what the Sixers did a few years ago and put together a band of,
gypsies.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, well, that's what it's going to be. I mean, if you think about it, think about the Brooklyn Nets now. So if you're the Washington Wizards and if you're the players, right, Bradley, Bill, and you're thinking, and some of the guys like, man, listen, we're just going to go down here, or just front office. We're going to use this as a training camp, so to speak. We're going to keep our lottery pick. And now you're looking at the Brooklyn Nets and you're saying, really? What, really? Because, like, the Nets haven't clinched a playoff spot, right? So they're going to go down there. They don't even have a coach. I mean, think about it. The coach resigned right before the end of the season, right, because he's going to get fired or something after the year. So he resigns. And then, like, their top players are talking about they don't want to go down there. And if you're Washington, you're looking at it like we have no chance of making the playoffs. We're basically just going to go down there and work out the young guys, do some team building and this and that, try to stay safe, but we're going to do some team building, and then we're just going to get our lottery pick. And now there's a chance that they may make the playoffs just because it looks like Brooklyn is tanking. It's crazy.
How are they going to do team building? They're not even allowed to play doubles ping pong.
Yeah, I mean, I know. Well,
it's not just
team building on the court. What'd you say?
It's not just them, though, because I just got an alert that Victor Oladipo opted out to not play, too. I mean, how is some of this going to impact the Sixers? We'll get into their health and what we expect from them, but these are some other teams that they're chasing the same playoff spots that they are, and looks like they may be a little bit shorthanded going into this.
It's weird. Like the Sixers, I have to get everything sounds great on paper for a 76ers team when you're going up against.
It always does with the Sixers, Keith.
Exactly. And then when you factor in that, we have yet to see these guys in 4 months. And even right now, like, the guys don't even come in contact with each other in the practice facility. So they're not, like, doing 5-on-5s. They're not doing anything. So it sounds great on paper, but we just have to see what it looks like, once the first game starts or when they have the first scrimmage. Just see what they're gonna look like, because right now there's an unknown. Now, if you're the Sixers and Victor Oladipo hasn't played, the one thing about it that you got to be careful of is, like, the Indiana Pacers beat them 2-1, and they're up 2-1 in the series without Victor Oladipo, and people. Like, remember there was a while when Victor first came back, they were struggling a little bit to find their groove because they had to implement them. So I think that while that's on paper, it sounds huge, if it was going to happen any year, this would be the one, just because they had an identity without him.
All right, well, here's what we do know. The Sixers apparently have two teams, Team Joe and Team Al. You wrote a story about it the other day. What is going on with Team Joe and Team Al, and what's been the fallout of Brett mentioning that?
It was basically, so do you like Team Joe and Team Al? You don't like it? You seem confused.
I don't know. Hold on. I don't know what he meant by that, quite frankly. If he's saying that the Team Joe means that Joel's going to be on the first team and Team Al, he's going to play on the second team, as we discussed on your podcast, that's what I want. I don't want those two guys on the court at the same time. But if this is a dynamic between the two, and there's two camps, that's kind of what I'm concerned about.
I'm wondering how both teams are going to be on the court at the end of the game.
Yeah, and I think that's what's going to happen. Like, basically, because Brett Brown was asked, like, okay, are you going to bring Al Horford off the bench, or are you going to keep him in the starting lineup? And he was like, oh, I'm not going to come out and say that yet, but we saw what doesn't work, and, we're not going to, he was giving all that. And then he said, okay, I'm going to help you guys out. I'm going to have a team Al, and then I'm going to have a team Joe, and then we're going to try to bring them together, right? So to me, what that said was he knows that they have a hard time playing together, and he knows that Al Horford is successful when he's on the floor without when he's not on the floor with Embiid. So it looks like to me that Embiid's going to start the game, Shake Milton's going to be in the starting lineup, and then when Embiid comes out, he's going to bring Al in, and he's going to feature Al Horford, right? But then when he says we're going to bring them all together, right, to the team, that means at the end of the game, we got to get our 5 best players on the floor. And Al Horford, even though he and Embiid haven't, meshed well, he is one of their best players. So with that said, he's going to close out the games.
So then who goes to the bench? Shake?
That's, you know what? If that's going to be the crazy one, it may have to be Shake, but, it's going to be one of those things where, if Jay Rich is struggling, well, Jay Rich may go to the bench. We do know that the 3 other people who aren't going to the bench are going to be Ben Simmons, right? I don't think you're not going to put Tobias on the bench, and you're definitely not going to end the game without Joel. So it's going to come down to, leaning towards Shake, but if Jay Rich struggles, then maybe Jay Rich may go to the bench.
You mentioned Ben Simmons won't be off the court. He says he's as healthy as he's felt all year. What are you hearing out of that camp right now?
He's, I'm hearing that he is, he's close. Well, some people are saying 100%. He looks well, and when he says that, it's true. I know that sounds like, oh wow, I'm better than I was in the beginning of the year, and you're going to have certain people saying, and what do you mean? Is that a cliche? No, it's real. In the beginning of the year, in the preseason, Ben Simmons missed a couple games because of his back. He had back problems in the beginning of the season. So now he's taking 4 months off, and now he's healthy. So when he says that, that's what he's not coming out and bringing up the other injury, but he's true, or the lingering injury. But so I'm hearing that he's ready to go. He's doing this and doing that, but, I don't think that his game, all of a sudden we're going to see a different type of Ben Simmons, he's going to come up and start shooting threes. Nah, I think that we're going to see the same player, and he's just going to be, he's going to have more spring in his step. He's going to be more decisive with what he does because he's not going to have fear of his back hurting him.
Okay, so that's one of the stars. Now let's talk about Joel. Is Joel, has anybody seen Joel? Do we know if he's in shape? Did he get into shape the way we've seen Zion Williamson get into shape or John Morant use the time? Does Joel look like he's cut and ready to go and he can play 48 minutes if we need? Or are we going to see a lot of Al because Joe still isn't in shape?
You know what? I haven't seen Joel at all. Joel, we've been doing these interviews for 3 days now with the players, 3 or 2 days with the players now, and we have yet to talk to Joel. Actually it's 3 days now. So we have yet to talk to Joe. You hear everything, and nothing against Joel, nothing against him, but it's one of those things where I'm so used to hearing stuff now. Every time there's a break in action, they're always saying, especially in the beginning of the season and right now, that we're hearing, oh, Joel's in the best shape of his life, Joel this, Joel that. So for me, I just want to wait and see it. And if he is, I applaud him. I'm happy for him. But I know in the past, especially in the beginning of this season, Brett Brown was saying this is the best shape that Joel's been in at the start of a season. And then next thing you know, a couple weeks later, they're saying that he's out of shape. So sometimes when Brett says stuff, he's a little bit, I'm not going to say he exaggerates, but I just say he overhypes things a lot. And it's one of those things where, Joel could get back in his shape by the time we see him because they have a month. But at the same time, I'm just reserving the right to make my opinion when I see him on August the 1st.
Been a lot of talk about the chemistry on this team or lack thereof at times. What are the conversations going on? I heard Tobias talk about a little bit. Some other people have talked about it. Glenn Robinson said that this is the best communication they've had, which concerns me because they all haven't seen each other for 4 months. Explain to me the chemistry challenges and if you think that it's going to be worked on. Given the fact that I'm seeing that on some of these calls, the players are saying, look, Brett's taking like 5 minutes to talk basketball and then to talk about like life too.
I got you.
I love that I made you laugh, Keith.
I got you. Yeah, it needs to be more basketball. Here's the thing about the chemistry thing. Now, Glenn Robinson III, when he came there, I guess, when he arrived, you can tell when stuff is a little bit off kilter. You know what I mean? You're a new guy, and you can see things may not be as, there may not be as much harmony as you expected. The lack of culture that they had is nothing new. I mean, Jeff, you're around there. You can tell stuff is crazy, or it was. And my question is now when Glenn Robinson III comes out and says this, yes, it's great when you guys are on a Zoom call and everyone's laughing and joking and this and that. That doesn't mean that when you say lack of chemistry, that doesn't mean that guys don't get along off the court. My big thing is what's going to happen when they start playing games? What's going to happen when, let's say if Ben Simmons becomes the point forward, right, and he starts to become the star of the team? How does Joel Embiid react to not getting as many touches as he used to get? You know what I mean? And then how if, let's just say you have Glenn Robinson III and Matisse Thybulle and Mike Scott, what if they're left out of the 8-man rotation? How are they going to take that? You know what I mean? Like, how is Al Horford going to respond when he's saying all the great things, but how is he going to respond if he doesn't get to close out a game or Tobias doesn't get to close out a game? So, to me, everything's great. It's kind of like the preseason of football. Everybody's going to go into training camp. We're going to hear all these stories about the Cleveland Browns being ready to go to the playoffs again. And then
Jeff
week
hates
6
that.
comes,
Jeff hates when people talk about Cleveland.
I don't know what he's talking about. But so you're talking about some of these players who may get upset if they don't get the ball. To me, that becomes a question of leadership. Is this something that Brett Brown is prepared to say, here are your roles? This is how we're getting through the season. If you have an issue, we'll discuss it after the season. We have unique circumstances. Let's just get with the program and let's see if we can win. Or is there the risk of a Scottie Pippen moment?
I don't know. I mean, it could be a Scottie Pippen moment depending on who it is. Like, if it's a superstar, it could be. Now, again, the way this team is made up, let's keep it real. The Scottie Pippen moment was because Scottie didn't get the ball, right?
Right.
I think, if Ben Simmons is on the floor, I don't know if he wants to take that big shot. You know what I mean? And that's not a knock against him, but it's just not his game. Like, he's not going to be the guy that's going to do that. So if you say, Ben, okay, you inbounds the ball, like you said to Scottie, Ben is like, all right, I'll do it. You know what I mean? Scottie won't. You know what I mean? But if you say, okay, Ben, you're not going to play in the last minute. If you say, Joel, you're not going to play in the last minute, I think Brett Brown will have some problems, because these are his two superstars. I mean, these are two guys who are regarded, to be who has next in the NBA, on the path to greatness. And if they don't play, I think Brett will have a problem. Yeah, of course. I think he is.
Okay, for all those people that forgot that what happened at the beginning of the season, who exactly on this team wants the ball at the end? We had that problem for a long time before this pandemic hit. Who, when they come back, is the guy that's going to want the ball in the clutch?
You know, it's funny. The guy who I would say would want the ball in the clutch, and he's only had like a 3 week to show what he can do, and he's not a starter. But the guy who I think has that type of mentality may be Alec Burks. But I don't know if you want him. If you got all these other guys, I don't know if you want him to have the ball at the end. You know what I mean? I don't think that's his role. I think the person who would have to take that role, assume that role, and to be that guy would have to be a Tobias. You know what I mean? A Tobias Harris. I think he has to assume that. I mean, right now, then you may say Shake Milton, but if Shake Milton is he big enough for that role? I mean, you know, talking about like maturity-wise, you know what I mean? Like years played in the league. You know, I mean, he has shown me a lot because he's one of those guys. I remember when he would first come in and he would take a shot, right? And you're saying like, no. Oh, okay, good play. But like you're looking at him and you're saying, dude, Tobias is wide open. Joel's wide open. What are you doing taking that shot? And he would make it. Now, again, it's different when the game is on the line and do you have the heart to take that shot. But if I'm the Sixers, I need Tobias to be more assertive at the end of the game.
It concerns me that the first choice you go to is a guy that's not going to probably be in the regular rotation as the guy who wants the shot. That to me is you know, we can talk about these pieces not necessarily fitting on the floor, have Team Al, Team Joe. At the end of the game, though, it gets tight. You know that somebody's going to have to want the ball in their hands, and I hope that player develops. We'll definitely see what comes out of it. Keith, we always enjoy getting a few minutes with you. I definitely can't wait to join you one day on the podcast. I enjoy listening to you and Jeff when you do the Locked On Sixers. Tell people how they can catch your Locked On Sixers podcast and how they can catch all your work.
Oh, I appreciate you. You can download the podcast on Spotify. You can also listen to it on Apple iTunes. You can read me on Inquirer.com, and you can follow me on social media on Pompey on Sixers, at Pompey on Sixers. Hey, I appreciate you guys for letting me come on, and we got to have both of you guys on the podcast so we can laugh and joke.
I'm down. I can't wait. I just want to hear Jeff do another read for your belt bar that you have.
Those aren't reads, man.
Well, you guys do it very well. You make me want to go try a bar, so we'll work on that.
Yeah, man.
That sponsorship.
10% off.
There you go, Keith. You could take it back and say we gave you a plug on the show. We got that going on. Keith, have a great 4th of July, man. Take care of yourself.
All right, thanks
and
for having
stay
me,
healthy.
Bye-bye.